A boy from 1,000 years ago just showed up on a modern soccer field and nobody knows what to make of him. Zhao was the greatest Cuju player of the ancient world who lived for the game. But one brutal hit during the biggest match of his life sent his soul flying straight into 2024, where the sport looks completely different and nobody has ever heard of Cuju. However, before any of this, at a magical night, a ship is moving across the ocean in which an old man reads out some words that Li Er, in the year of Xian Cho, on the 26th day of the 12th lunar month fell to his death. Not only that, but he also takes some more names like Feng Wu, who also died a vicious death in the year of Xian Cho, and another person named Lady Shien, who passed away from an illness in the year of Xian Cho on the 26th day of the 12th lunar month. At the ship, almost everyone is sobbing and crying for them, but the old man closes his registration book and informs everyone that the identity verification has been complete and now the ferry is about to leave Fengdu and head to Naijiao. Just then, someone informs the old man that there is still a person left whose identity hasn't been verified. Seeing him, everyone thinks that the young boy doesn't seem to be quite like the rest of them. The old man then walks up to the boy and demands to know what he is doing on the boat and what his name is, but the boy becomes visibly nervous upon hearing these questions and responds that he simply cannot remember anything. Hearing this, the old man becomes absolutely furious and is completely at a loss trying to make sense of what is going on. He hastily flips through his registration book and convinces himself that there is absolutely no way a stowaway could have possibly managed to get onto this boat without anyone noticing. The people gathered on the boat begin gossiping among themselves as well, whispering that there is a rumor going around suggesting that this old man has made serious errors in the past, so there is a possibility that he himself may have brought the boy along. Out of nowhere, an elderly man from within the crowd suddenly steps forward and announces that he actually recognizes the young boy, leaning in to take a much closer look at his face. Upon getting a good look at him, the elderly man appears completely shaken and overwhelmed, as though he cannot believe what he is seeing, and he immediately addresses the boy by the respectful title of His Highness. The old man then turns to everyone present and reveals that this young man standing before them is none other than the sixth prince of the current emperor himself, Zhao Yj. Hearing this, everyone is shocked and starts questioning whether the old men are actually telling the truth, since there is no way a real prince would be dressed like this, and on top of that, the boy is wearing a Chiyun Club uniform. The old officer gets fed up with all the doubt and uses his powers to touch Zhao's forehead so he can read his mind directly. In Zhao's mind, he is sitting inside his palace where all kinds of exotic foods are laid out and served to him, but Zhao does not seem very interested in any of it. One of the palace workers asks Zhao whether he does not like the food, and Zhao replies that it is the same thing every single day, so just looking at it is enough to kill his appetite. The worker then reminds Zhao that he only recently recovered from a serious illness, and even if the food is not to his taste, he still needs to eat on time, and that Master Qin is already waiting for him in the study. Hearing this, Zhao immediately feels a wave of nausea wash over him, and he directs the worker to remove the food from the table since he has completely lost his appetite. Shortly after, his attention is drawn to a cat playfully batting at a toy nearby, which makes him reflect on how much he genuinely envies these small creatures for being able to live their lives without any restrictions or burdens. While sitting there, Zhao happens to overhear a conversation between two workers discussing how someone has stepped forward to challenge the Chiyun Club, and according to what they are saying, the challengers are a team made up of envoys representing the Jiaoji Kingdom, a group reportedly packed with highly skilled and powerful experts. The two workers continue talking about how the leader of this opposing team is described as being as massive and imposing as an entire mountain, and they also mention that ever since Zhao has been confined, the overall strength and reputation of the Chiyun Club has dropped off considerably. Curious and wanting to know more, Zhao turns to one of the workers and questions whether these challengers are truly as fearsome and powerful as they are being described. When the following day arrives, another match is arranged between the Chiyun Club and this formidable opposing team, and players from both sides take their positions and begin competing against one another. During the match, a player from Chiyun Club jumps into the air and sends the ball flying high toward a teammate, but an opponent quickly spins around the boy and kicks the ball to the other side. The ball moves straight toward the net, and a Chiyun Club player suddenly appears and tries to block it, but he is too slow as a massive guy slams right into him hard. Because of this, the opposing team now has 3 points on the board, and everyone in the audience is shocked to see just how strong they are. The massive guy then starts making fun of the boy, saying that he had heard Chiyun Club is supposed to be the best team in the whole country, but watching them today is honestly a little disappointing for him. Right at that moment, Zhao steps in and points out that their country is known for its etiquette, which means they show respect and courtesy to guests who come to visit. Everyone is surprised to see him there and starts wondering what the Prince of Chiyun Club is doing showing up here. Without wasting any time, the massive guy turns toward Zhao and throws out a direct challenge to him. The match begins and Zhao quickly runs away from the massive build guy, so that he cannot get the ball. The massive build guy then tries his best to stop Zhao, but he just dodges him and throws the ball straight into the net. That surprises everyone. The person who is in charge of changing the scoreboard using his paintbrush changes the score while crying and spraying paint all over the audience. The entire crowd bursts into loud cheers for Zhao, with everyone eagerly wanting him to score another point for the Shien club. Among the spectators, a young girl excitedly tells her grandfather that Zhao is incredibly skilled, to which her grandfather responds that Zhao is without a doubt the best player the Shien club has ever had. Meanwhile, on the opposing side, the opponent team's players are left completely puzzled about where Zhao came from, as none of them have ever encountered anything quite like him before. The match then continues, and the opponent team's players push themselves as hard as they can, making their way around the field with great effort. However, when the ball finally reaches Zhao and he attempts to shoot it powerfully toward the net, the massive and heavily built opponent suddenly shoves him with an overwhelming amount of force. Back to the present, Zhao finally comes to a full realization of who he truly is, and the old officer calmly explains to him that the impact from that contact appears to have knocked his soul completely out of his body, which is the reason he now finds himself in his current situation. Despite understanding this, Zhao is left deeply troubled and questions how it is possible that he died at the very moment when victory had finally been so close within his reach. The old man attempts to explain to Zhao that his body is actually still alive, which means that they would need to perform some kind of magic in order to successfully return his soul back into his body, but just as he begins to take steps toward doing so, Zhao simply turns around and walks away without any interest in listening. Zhao then makes his way onto a small boat and attempts to leave, which completely catches everyone off guard and leaves them all wondering what exactly he is trying to accomplish by doing this. The truth is that Zhao is absolutely furious at the massively built opponent for ruining his shooting record, and the burning desire for revenge against that man is the only thing driving him forward at this moment. On the other hand, the people standing on the boat urgently call out to Zhao, telling him to come back since they still need to move on to their next formation lines. All of them rush toward him and attempt to hold him back and stop him from going any further, but Zhao is completely consumed by rage and makes it clear that he has to finish the ongoing match no matter what, and that it does not matter to him even if he were to die right there. Without hesitating any further, Zhao throws himself off the boat and plunges into the ocean, and then pushes himself as hard as he possibly can to swim forward. The old officer and the others then start yelling at Zhao to stop, and they even wonder if they could find a way to have him come back. At this moment, a strange and unfamiliar voice reaches Zhao's ears, telling him to make a wish. Zhao looks around in every direction, completely bewildered and trying to figure out what is happening, but the mysterious voice speaks to him again and tells him that he has the ability to continue living out his dream. Without any warning, the water around him begins swirling and rising in an unnatural way, and Zhao suddenly finds himself being dragged downward beneath the surface of the ocean, completely powerless as his own body stops responding to anything he tries to do. Zhao desperately fights with everything he has to regain control over his body and resist being pulled further down into the depths of the ocean, but no matter how hard he tries, his body simply refuses to listen to a single command he gives it. Then, in an instant, Zhao is suddenly transported to an entirely different location, finding himself inside a house where a young girl and a young man are quietly sitting together and having their dinner, and he comes crashing down directly onto their dining table. 2 hours earlier, the young boy had actually been working incredibly hard on drawing out some kind of formation on his blackboard, pouring a great deal of effort and concentration into getting it right. However, no matter how many times he attempts it and no matter how hard he pushes himself, he simply cannot get the formation to come out correctly, which leaves him so frustrated that he ends up throwing his marker aside in defeat. He then makes his way back to his sofa and slumps down, thinking to himself that arranging a proper formation is an extraordinarily difficult task, but just as he is sitting there, his phone suddenly rings and he sees that it is an incoming call from Principal Chen. At the very same time, the boy's sister is busy in the kitchen carefully cooking up a delicious meal specifically for him, and not only has she put in the effort to prepare everything exceptionally well, but she has also gone out of her way to present the food in a strikingly beautiful manner. After finishing up in the kitchen, the girl turns toward her brother to excitedly share the news about the wonderful meal she has just prepared, but he is far too caught up in what he is hearing over the phone to pay attention, as he is completely stunned by the sudden mention of group qualifiers and finds himself thinking that what he is hearing is simply impossible. The girl is then left surprised to watch her brother become visibly furious at whoever is on the other end of the phone, as he firmly tells the person that given their team's current situation, even entertaining the idea of group qualifiers is unrealistic, and that simply gathering enough players to compete in any competition at all should already be considered a significant enough achievement. The person on the call wonders why is the boy whose name is Xiaofeng saying such disheartening words as he would normally say something else. Xiaofeng then asks the person whether he has been drinking again, to which the guy admits that he did indeed have a drink. Xiaofeng then turns his attention to a team application list filled with the names of various players while continuing the conversation and questions the person on the phone about why he chose to drink today, especially considering that he had been completely avoiding alcohol for more than 10 years. The guy responds that he simply needed something to help him work through and settle some of his emotions. Hearing this, Xiaofeng is genuinely taken aback and asks whether something happened at school, urging the person to just be straightforward and honest with him. The guy reassures Xiaofeng that nothing bad has actually taken place and tells him not to overthink the situation, adding that instead of worrying so much about him, Xiaofeng should be focusing his energy on delivering real results for the league tournament that year, or else there would be consequences. After the call finally ends, Xiaofeng sits there wondering to himself what is going on with the old man, but before he can think too deeply about it, his sister suddenly walks in, snatches his phone right out of his hand, and tells him to set all of his work aside and eat his dinner first. Afterward, the girl serves all kinds of food on the dinner table, and when Xiaofeng gets to sit there, he gets surprised and asks her what kind of festival is there today, so she tells him that it's even more important than a festival's today is Xiaofeng's 32nd birthday, which he himself forgot. The girl tells him that she was busy the entire day just to prepare this for him, and now he is showing such bland sentences that is making it look like he is not interested at all. After that, the girl asks him if something happened because she has been noticing lately that he have been so absent-minded recently. Hearing that, Xiaofeng replies that the inter-school tournament is about to start, and with their current performance it really does make him feel anxious. The girl then says that there should be some improvements this year, as everyone has been working hard. She also brings up the fact that the first-year students who recently joined the team are showing a great deal of motivation and enthusiasm, but Xiaofeng responds that even hearing about those fellows is enough to make his headache feel significantly worse than it already is. The girl then gently places a birthday crown on top of Xiaofeng's head and cheerfully tells him that since they are siblings, she has passed along every bit of her good luck to him, assuring him that this is going to be a truly wonderful year for him. Following that, she tells him that he really should not be feeling so dull and lifeless on his own birthday and insists that he should not be sleeping on her culinary skills either. Xiaofeng then picks up a piece of the fried chicken she prepared and takes a bite, noting to himself that the color and texture are actually quite impressive and that the juices are practically bursting out on their own without any effort. Hearing this, the girl stares at him and wonders what on earth he is even talking about, but before either of them can say anything further, a mysterious portal suddenly tears open in the air directly above them and it begins raining down from within it. In the next moment, Zhao comes hurtling out of the portal and crashes straight down onto their dinner table. Back in the present, Xiaofeng and his sister lean in and study Zhao with great curiosity, genuinely wondering whether he might actually be some kind of alien given the fact that he came falling out of what appeared to be a portal. Xiaofeng turns to his sister and tells her to come take a proper and careful look, pointing out that just based on his physical appearance alone, this person in front of them looks far more like a regular human being than some of her own classmates do. However, his sister shoots back at him and questions why he is even speaking such nonsense at a moment as serious as this, arguing that the most sensible thing for them to do right now would be to simply call the police. Xiaofeng tells her not to panic though, because given the extremely unusual nature of what they just witnessed, even if they were to call the police, nobody would actually believe a single word of their story. On top of that, involving the authorities might end up making the entire situation considerably more complicated. Just then, Zhao opens his eyes, immediately becoming aware that his hands are tied up and that two unfamiliar people are standing directly in front of him. He wastes absolutely no time and begins yelling at them, demanding to know who they are and why they have tied him up, but Xiaofeng firmly responds that they are the ones who should rightfully be asking the questions here. It is at this point that Zhao suddenly finds his mind drifting back to his time in the ancient world, where he had been engaged in an intense duel match against the massively built opponent. With that memory fresh in his mind, Zhao immediately demands to know whether the two of them are accomplices of that muscular man from Cochin, which refers to an ethnic group originating from the southernmost part of the ancient Chinese Empire, a region known today as northern Vietnam. Upon hearing this, both Xiaofeng and the girl exchange deeply confused looks with one another, completely unable to make sense of what Zhao is saying or where any of it is even coming from. Xiaofeng then sternly warns Zhao not to even think about trying to deceive them and tells him to speak the truth instead. He then goes on to demand an explanation for why Zhao suddenly appeared inside their house out of nowhere and what exactly was going on with that strange pool of water that had materialized above them earlier. Hearing all of this, Zhao feels genuinely offended and cannot believe that these two ordinary people would dare to speak so rudely towards someone of his status, and he advises Xiaofeng to untie him, warning both of them that if they fail to comply, he will have no choice but to make sure they are both severely punished for their disrespectful behavior. Xiaofeng gets confused, so his sister tells him to let her try with the talking and asks Zhao if he have an ID or something that can prove his identity. Zhao tells them that he is the sixth prince of the current emperor. Everyone under the heavens knows that, so what's there to prove? However, the girl doesn't believe that and thinks that Zhao must have so many more serious injuries that now he thinks of himself as some kind of a prince. She asks him if he do have his phone, so that they can try contacting his family or friends, but Zhao straight away asks them what is a phone. Hearing that, the girl gets annoyed, but she still shows him her phone and tries to explain that this is a kind of item she is talking about, but Zhao has never seen or heard about it before. Zhao is then caught completely off guard when he catches a glimpse of the date displayed on her phone, which actually reads 2024, and he immediately begins looking around in every direction with wide eyes, utterly unable to wrap his mind around the fact that he has somehow traveled through time. He then slowly makes his way toward the balcony, his thoughts racing as he tries desperately to process everything that is happening around him, but just a short while later, his body finally gives out and he collapses onto the ground completely unconscious. Xiaofeng and his sister then carry Zhao and settle him inside a spare room, where he lies in a bed that is perfectly comfortable, yet despite how exhausted he is, sleep simply refuses to come to him and he lies there wondering whether everything that has happened is nothing more than a dream. At that moment, the ghost of an elderly man suddenly materializes before him and calmly informs Zhao that what he is experiencing is absolutely not a dream, and that he has in fact found himself in a world that exists a full 1,000 years after the Qianwing dynasty. Zhao immediately questions the old man about whether he is actually dead, reasoning that if he truly were dead then he should not be present in this world at all, but the old man reassures him that he is not dead and explains that it is simply his serious injuries that have caused his primordial spirit to separate itself from his physical body. Zhao then bursts into a fit of rage and demands to know why he has ended up in such a place when he is not even dead, insisting that if that is truly the case then he should rightfully be back on the Cuju field where he belongs, but the old man calmly responds that everything that has unfolded was ultimately brought about by Zhao's own actions. Zhao finds this incredibly difficult to accept and simply cannot bring himself to believe that he is responsible for everything that has happened to him. The old man then goes on to explain that it is all a direct consequence of Zhao rashly throwing himself into the river of the underworld without any regard for the rules, thereby breaking its fundamental laws and setting off the entire chain of events that followed. Zhao continues to struggle with accepting any of this and argues that even if everything the old man is saying is true, that still does not justify throwing him into a world that is a full 1,000 years into the future. But then something suddenly clicks in his mind and his expression shifts as he turns to the old man and eagerly asks whether there is any possibility of him being brought back to where he originally came from. However, the old man just grabs Zhao's hand and asks if he thinks a Forbidden Lands commandment is something he can decide as he please and tells him that since his physical body has also been transported here, even he is powerless to do anything. The following morning, Xiaofeng's sister wakes up early and goes to rouse her brother, telling him to stop wasting time and get himself out of bed since she has already gotten all of his things ready and laid them out on the table. Xiaofeng groans in frustration and complains that even on a holiday he cannot manage to sleep until noon, and on top of that he argues that skipping 2 meals is going to end up giving him dangerously low blood sugar. Xiaofeng then begins rummaging through his bag in search of his resistance band, growing increasingly confused when he cannot locate it despite being completely certain that he had placed it in there just the day before, but his sister casually asks him whether he is referring to the blue-colored one. The girl then mentions that they had actually used that very resistance band the previous day to tie someone up, and at that exact moment, the realization hits both of them simultaneously that they still have an uninvited guest somewhere in the house from the night before. The two of them immediately take off running toward the room where they had left Zhao, and upon unlocking the door, they find him sitting quietly on the floor inside. Later on, at the police station, where officers bring in a massively built and heavily tattooed man who has been caught committing porcelain fraud, which involves deliberately placing expensive and highly fragile porcelain items in locations where unsuspecting people can easily knock them over. Inside the station, a chaotic scene is already unfolding as more than dozens of people are simultaneously arguing with one another and causing a tremendous amount of disorder, and it is right in the middle of all this chaos that Xiaofeng and his sister arrive, bringing Zhao along with them. The police officer informs them that there is absolutely no information available regarding Zhao's identity, which is making it extremely difficult to figure out who he actually is. Xiaofeng and his sister both desperately plead with the officer to help them work through this unusual situation, and so the police officer decides to begin the search by starting from the most basic information available. First of all, the officer asks them to provide the name of this new individual, so Xiaofeng turns toward Zhao and urges him to say something since the police officer is patiently waiting for his name. Zhao then straightforwardly states that his name is Zhao Yi, which the officer begins writing down, prompting Xiaofeng to remark that a name written with such a particular character is actually quite rare and uncommon. It is at this moment that Zhao's mind drifts back to what the elderly ghost had told him the previous night, specifically that this is a world existing a full 1,000 years into the future. With that, he casually lets the word 10 slip out from his lips, which immediately leaves the officer thoroughly puzzled and wondering what exactly Zhao could possibly mean by saying something like that. Zhao gets angry and replies that he have a lot of work to do, so he don't have the time to joke around with them, and then Xiaofeng apologizes to the officer, saying Zhao must have been startled so he should bear with them. The officer attempts to keep his frustration under control and asks Zhao to provide his home address, but Zhao responds by telling them that they are busy people who no longer have the time to keep going around in circles with him and that he wants them to understand that they are genuinely trying to help him. Xiaofeng then warns Zhao that if he continues to behave this way then they are simply going to be unable to do anything more for him, but Zhao pays no attention to this and instead declares that he lives in Bianjing, on Longting Street, in the southeast section of the Imperial City, specifically at Ruiqing Palace in the Prince's Palace Hall. Sometime later, rain begins to fall steadily outside and all three of them make their way out of the police station together, with Xiaofeng remarking that Zhao has quite the talent for talking complete and utter nonsense. He then turns directly to Zhao and tells him that as long as he keeps speaking the way he does, there is simply no way anyone is going to be able to help him, but Zhao simply ignores everything being said to him and begins walking off on his own. Following this, Xiaofeng turns to his sister and tells her that they should just leave Zhao to his own devices and hurry off to school, because if they end up arriving late then he is not going to make it to training in time. Xiaofeng's sister makes the decision to go out and search for Zhao despite the rain still coming down, doing her absolute best to look around in every direction but coming up completely empty-handed and unable to locate him anywhere. The girl then happens to overhear a disgruntled elderly man complaining loudly about how some boy had bumped straight into him, dirted his brand new clothes in the process, and then took off running without even bothering to stop and offer a single word of apology. Right at that moment, the girl finally spots Zhao, who is walking in a completely bizarre and disoriented manner, not paying the slightest bit of attention to anything or anyone around him, stumbling forward as though he has absolutely no idea where he even is, and before anyone can do anything about it, he ends up wandering straight into the middle of the busy road without even the slightest awareness of the very real and immediate danger that he is putting himself in by doing so. Out of nowhere, a truck comes barreling directly toward him at full speed, but Zhao does not budge even a single inch from where he is standing, completely unbothered and utterly unaware of the massive vehicle heading straight for him, which ultimately forces the truck driver to violently swerve out of the way at the very last possible moment in order to avoid a devastating collision. The people who happen to witness the entire terrifying incident from the sidelines are left absolutely stunned and shaken to their core, and many of them begin loudly questioning among themselves whether Zhao has some kind of death wish driving his behavior or whether he is simply oblivious enough not to have noticed that he had been standing directly in the middle of a red light the entire time without a single care in the world. Suddenly, a young boy nearby loses his grip on his balloon and it goes floating directly toward Zhao, who upon seeing it immediately associates it with the ball game that he used to play so passionately with others back in his kingdom. The sight of it instantly triggers a flood of warm memories, and Zhao quickly finds himself imagining the faces of his closest companions and all the joy and excitement he experienced while playing that beloved ball game alongside them. Driven entirely by that powerful rush of emotion, he takes off running straight toward the balloon with everything he has, feeling in that moment as though this is truly the world where he belongs, surrounded by his companions and cheered on by countless people who believed in him and supported him wholeheartedly. In his imagination, Zhao finds himself once again standing face to face with that intimidating massively built opponent from his past life, and this time around things go very differently as he manages to smoothly and effortlessly take the ball away from him before launching it powerfully up into the air with perfect form. However, the moment the illusion fades, Zhao comes crashing back to reality and realizes that what he had been chasing was nothing more than an ordinary balloon, and the weight of that realization settles heavily over him. At that moment that the girl finally catches up to him, slightly out of breath, and tells him that he should have at least said a proper goodbye before simply walking out like that. However, Zhao gets closer to the wall and bangs his head on it and starts crying, which makes the girl worried, and she asks him if he is feeling alright. Zhao doesn't reply for a while, and now the sun is also out as the rain stops, and this made the girl happy, so she tells him that she might not know what he has been through, but everything is going to get better for him. Out of nowhere, a football lands on Zhao's feet, so he grabs it, wondering what this thing is. In front of Bowen Private High School, Zhao stands holding a soccer ball, lost in thought for a moment until a voice suddenly draws the attention of both him and the person beside him, calling out for someone to pass the ball quickly. Inside the campus on the grass, a young man with long hair leaps up to head the ball while another player dribbles past his opponent, and it becomes clear that what they are hearing is the lively sound of a soccer training session already underway. Tian then looks inside and says on how energetic everyone looks, then turns to the person standing next to her and asks whether he likes playing soccer. Zhao says nothing at all and simply keeps his eyes fixed on the match, which leaves Tian momentarily stunned. Just then, a voice calls out from a distance asking the person standing over there to please throw the ball over, and Tian recognizes someone she knows and waves back in greeting. The girl exclaims in surprise upon recognizing Tian, rushes over, and grabs her arm and says that it has been such a long time since they have seen each other. Tian laughs and points out that it has only been a single week of vacation, but the girl playfully teases her anyway before noticing Zhao and asking Tian whether he is her friend. Tian replies that he is not really a friend and that she has only just met him, which gives the girl all the energy she needs to tease her further. Tian quickly insists that it is genuinely nothing, but the girl cheerfully loops her arm through both of theirs and drags them both inside, telling them not to stand outside the door any longer and not to be shy. Out on the soccer field, enthusiastic cheers fill the air as a round soccer ball rolls across the field between two competing teams dressed in blue and red respectively, with the ball moving quickly from foot to foot, getting stolen, and changing possession. It appears that the blue team has found a scoring opportunity, and one player shouts for the ball to be played into the middle quickly. Receiving his teammate's signal, another blue-shirt player launches a powerful kick that sends the ball flying in a strange trajectory, and the guy from earlier quickly receives it from his teammate before shouting and unleashing what he clearly intends to be a spectacular aerial volley. However, the kick turns out to be all show and no substance, sending the ball soaring uselessly into the sky and rolling off to the side under the stunned and disbelieving gazes of everyone watching. The guy buries his face in embarrassment and wishes the ground would swallow him whole, while an opponent from the other team walks over and consolingly rubs his head, sarcastically remarking that the shot has been incredibly considerate of him. Even his own teammates cannot help coming over to ask him why he has not taken any of the numerous opportunities he has been given, and the girl, who has been watching from start to finish, shouts at him loudly and tells him that if he does not have the skill for flashy moves, then he should just use a normal shot instead. The person freezes upon hearing her voice, thinking that this woman has absolutely no idea how to hold back, but when he looks back and sees that Tian is standing right next to the girl, his embarrassment reaches a whole new level as he realizes she has witnessed the entire humiliating display. Overwhelmed by the thought, he completely loses his composure and stands frozen in the middle of the field, prompting Tian to curiously ask the girl what is wrong with him. The girl says that he is probably thinking nonsense again before angrily ordering someone to stop messing around and start practicing seriously. The score has now reached 2-0, with the sophomores and juniors pulling ahead and leaving the freshman team trailing behind, and the tension is written clearly across the faces of every freshman team member on the field. Out on the field, the red team passes the ball around and one of their players spots an opportunity to push their advantage even further, planting his foot firmly and taking careful aim at the goal. The blue team's goalkeeper looks on in genuine fear, wondering anxiously whether this player is really about to put the ball in the net, but just then a blue team player comes charging over with terrifying speed, unleashing a long shout before executing a perfectly timed sliding kick that successfully blocks the ball. The girl cheers wildly from the sidelines at the spectacular defensive effort, and even Zhao, who has been intently observing every detail of the match, pauses for a brief moment in response. The ball then rolls back to the blue team's feet, and while most players are overjoyed to receive the ball, this particular player is overwhelmed with panic the moment it reaches him, his mind racing with questions about what he should do and who he should pass it to. His teammates call out to him anxiously, urging him to stop overthinking and pass the ball immediately, and in a moment of complete helplessness he simply closes his eyes and launches the ball in a random direction, sending it flying as though it were heading to the ends of the earth and completely bypassing his own teammate in the process. His teammate spins around to chase after the wildly misdirected pass, barely containing his fury at the terrible decision. Meanwhile, a blue-shirted player finds himself with an opponent directly in his path but glides past him effortlessly with impressively skillful technique, not even forgetting to toss a playful goodbye over his shoulder as he goes. The match presses on, and despite failing to stop him initially, the opposing players refuse to give up and quickly swarm around the blue-shirted player from every angle, clinging to him so tightly that he finds it nearly impossible to shake them off. Scanning the field and assessing the situation around him, he reluctantly comes to the conclusion that even his teammate is completely marked up, so he calls out loudly to one of the player that his positioning is far too rigid. The player is already in an incredibly difficult situation with players hanging off him and constantly grabbing at his clothes, but he shouts back telling his teammate to stop talking and just pass the ball quickly. Surprised by the urgency, the player sends the pass across, but the opposing team manages to react just a fraction faster and causes the ball to veer off its intended trajectory. One of the player panics and cries out as everyone watches the ball bounce in an unexpected direction, and the closest player to it at that moment happens to be the guy with glasses from earlier. The player then suddenly lets out a loud and fierce shout like a wild animal and lunges forward to fight for the ball, yelling at everyone to get out of his way. Sweat pours down the face of the guy with glasses as everyone looks back in surprise, and even another player comes to a sudden stop when he looks down and sees that the glasses have been knocked to the ground and shattered completely. Everyone rushes over to check on him, noting that the collision has not been a light one at all, and while the guy with glasses insists he is fine, Tion observes quietly from the side that the broken glasses mean he will not be able to continue playing. The girl examines the wound with concern and determines that while it is fortunately only a superficial injury that can be treated simply, the blue team complains helplessly that their already unpredictable energy is now going to be further disrupted, jokingly referring to it as one of the 7 prohibitions. The red team is equally unhappy about the situation, grumbling that things are becoming troublesome and that there are not enough players left to continue the training match properly. The girl angrily taps Junxuan on the head repeatedly, scolding him for managing to get someone injured when they already have so few people to begin with, but then a sudden idea crosses her mind and she spins around with a bright and enthusiastic expression, turning to Tion and suggesting that her friend should step in and replace the guy with glasses on the field. Tion asks uncertainly whether that would really be alright, but the girl cuts her off and brushes aside any concerns, saying it is simply a release of energy and nothing more to worry about. The red team does not particularly mind the substitution since they figure a bunch of freshmen would not pose any real threat to them, and although one of the player initially looks like he wants to object, he catches the intense and dangerous glare coming from the girl's direction and immediately changes his position, announcing that since no one is objecting they should all get back to their positions and prepare to restart. Noticing that Zhao is still standing there looking hesitant and unsure, Tion steps over and gently reassures him that the girl is right and that whether or not he knows how to play is not really the point, because the truly important thing is that running freely on that green field will fill him with boundless joy and courage, healing whatever wounds he carries inside him, and that is the true and enduring charm of football. Meanwhile, Xiaofeng is getting late for his training, but he thinks about his sister, Tian, to actually abandon him and run off by herself. He then looks at his wristwatch and realizes that if he don't move faster then he is definitely not going to make it for today's training. Suddenly, Xiaofeng hears some news about a certain construction group excavated an ancient tomb while doing their construction works, and according to the tests done by the archaeology team, and it's highly likely that it's the ruins of an ancient tomb from Qianqing dynasty. Furthermore, the news broadcaster also reveals that some ceramic utensils, gold and silver accessories have been excavated from it as well, and what's even more interesting is that there are the items that seem to be related to Cuju era. In addition to that, the person says that Cuju is kind of an ancient ball game of theater country that has been recognized as the predecessor of football by FIFA, and FIFA has mentioned on many occasions about the relations between Cuju and football, and they also admitted that the history of football can be traced back to their country's Cuju that's 200 years before. Hearing this, Xiaofeng finds himself completely drawn into the news channel, genuinely puzzled about what exactly the reporter is referring to, but the reporter continues to explain that the very first Cuju club to ever be established in their country was founded during the dynasty and was known by the name of the Shien club. She goes on to elaborate that ancient attire belonging to Cuju players has also been successfully excavated, with the designs and colors of the clothing remaining remarkably clear and easy to make out even after all this time, and she emphasizes that the discovery of these extraordinary historical relics holds tremendous significance for ongoing research into the culture, sports, and society of the S dynasty. Xiaofeng is then visibly taken aback when the camera zooms in and he gets a clear look at the ancient Cuju player attire being displayed on the news channel. Meanwhile, Zhao is in the middle of getting himself ready for the upcoming soccer match when Tian and the other girls gather around him and tell him not to feel any pressure whatsoever, reassuring him that it is perfectly fine even if he does not have a full understanding of how the game is played. At the same time, one of the players from the opposing team leans over to his friend Shien, who is already visibly trembling with nerves, and points out that Zhao appears to be on very close and friendly terms with Tian, which is clearly stirring up a great deal of anger within him. Shien then begins making his way over toward Zhao with clear intentions, but his teammate quickly grabs his attention and urges him not to do anything rash, so Shien instead turns to his teammate and instructs him to make sure he passes him the ball as frequently as possible since he is absolutely determined to score a spectacular and jaw-dropping goal right in front of Tian. Suddenly, both of them are caught completely off guard when they spot Zhao standing right there on the field, boldly telling Shien to step aside since he is also planning to play in that exact same position. Shien immediately becomes furious and leans in to whisper sharply at Zhao, telling him not to cause any trouble and making it crystal clear that there is only one center forward on this team and that person is him and him alone, without any exceptions. Just at that moment, a girl reaches out and grabs Shien firmly by the ear, instructing him to quickly go and take over Zhang's position without any further argument since the match is just about to get underway and there is no more time to waste standing around bickering. The match then kicks off with Zhao's team putting on a genuinely impressive display right from the start, and one of the players spots Zhao standing open in a good position and sends the ball in his direction. However, rather than going through with the pass to Zhao, the player ends up redirecting it toward Shien instead, a decision that even manages to visibly frustrate and annoy one of the players on the opposing team. Just as the ball is about to reach Shien, an opponent player manages to time his move perfectly and steals the ball right before it can get there. Following this, two players from Zhao's team immediately give chase and press hard to win the ball back, but the boy keeps his composure and fires a sharp pass straight to a teammate, who then manages to find the back of the net by deflecting the ball directly off the face of the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper gets knocked down to the ground from the sheer force of the shot, while the player who struck it quickly apologizes and admits that he put far too much power behind the kick. However, one of the other players immediately warns everyone not to let their guard down or get careless, pointing out that the ball has rebounded off the goalkeeper, which means that it is not a dead ball yet and the play is still very much alive. The ball then rolls toward one of the players on Zhao's side, but an opposing player reacts quickly and intercepts it before it can be properly controlled, sending it in the direction of yet another player on the opposite team. At that moment, one of Zhao's teammates bursts forward and rushes past the opponent with an impressively skillful technical move in an attempt to strip him of the ball, but the effort ultimately proves completely ineffective since he is simply no match whatsoever for his opponent when it comes to raw physical strength. The player then frantically scans his options and his eyes land on Zhao, and the realization quickly sets in that there is absolutely no other choice left available to him and that passing the ball to Zhao is the only viable option remaining. He then sends a quick kick in Zhao's direction and the ball makes its way over to him, but rather than receiving and controlling it the way any other player normally would, the ball barely grazes his feet before bouncing awkwardly up and hitting his hand, after which it ends up going directly into the waiting hands of the opposing goalkeeper. Seeing this, everyone on the field is left completely stunned, but Zhao's teammate is absolutely seething with fury and cannot believe what he just witnessed, openly questioning what on earth Zhao was even doing out there when he had put everything on the line just to get that pass to him, only for Zhao to waste the golden opportunity as though it meant absolutely nothing. At the same time, the players on the opposing team are equally baffled among themselves, struggling to understand how someone could possibly fail to handle such a straightforward and easy ball in the first place. Zhao himself, however, is internally bewildered and keeps wondering what is going on with him, privately thinking that this ball feels completely and entirely different from the Cuju ball he has spent his whole life mastering. Over on the sidelines, the girls watching the match feel a genuine wave of sympathy wash over them for Zhao, lamenting to one another that such a rare and precious one-on-one opportunity has been thrown away just like that without anything to show for it. Tian observes the situation and remarks that it is becoming increasingly apparent that Zhao truly does not know how to play soccer at all, but another girl counters by pointing out that it actually looked more like he was instinctively trying to catch the ball with his hands rather than use his feet. It is at this point that Xiaofeng appears and chimes in, bluntly adding that the way Zhao attempted to handle the ball was an absolute and total mess. The match then carries on and the ball continues finding its way to Zhao repeatedly, but every single time it reaches him it either deflects off his feet or bounces awkwardly off his legs and ends up ricocheting all over the place in every direction. Seeing all this, one of the guys of Zhao's team gets furious at him and asks if he is here to purposely disrupt them and that if he doesn't know how to play then he should just get lost. On the other hand, the girl pulls Xiaofeng aside and informs him that Zhangzhe has gotten injured and is no longer able to continue playing, which is why she is asking Xiaofeng to step in as a substitute. Tian then shifts her gaze over toward the ongoing match and finds herself thinking that something about the overall atmosphere feels unusually strange and off. Meanwhile, during the match itself, one of the opposing players keeps clinging relentlessly to Zhao's teammate, pressing up against him so tightly and persistently that no matter how hard the teammate tries to shake free and create some space, he simply cannot get away from the suffocating coverage. One of the other players then manages to get a foot on the ball and knocks it loose, sending it rolling in the direction of Shien, who at this point is already in the middle of angrily scolding Zhao for his earlier behavior on the field. Just at that moment, however, Zhao releases his hold on Shien and immediately bursts into a full sprint toward the ball, even though it is heading in the completely opposite direction from where most people would expect him to go. One of the girls on the sideline screams out at Zhao to stop and give up on it, warning him that the ball is heading out of bounds and that there is no possible way he is going to be able to save it in time, but Zhao refuses to accept that and pushes himself to the absolute limit, miraculously managing to get to the ball and save it at the very last possible moment before it crosses the line. Seeing this, everyone around is left completely surprised and taken aback, and Xiaofeng's sister immediately exclaims that the catch was absolutely awesome, a sentiment that the other girl enthusiastically echoes as she adds that what they just witnessed is something that is rarely ever seen even at the professional league level. The other girl then goes a step further and begins wondering out loud whether Zhao has actually been deliberately faking weakness this entire time as a calculated strategy to deceive and ultimately defeat the stronger players here, because everything about the way he just moved suggests that he is genuinely and deeply skilled. Just at that moment, one of the players from the opposing team throws the ball back into play and everyone immediately bursts into motion, rushing and scrambling to get to it first. The guy then glances back at Zhao and tells him directly that the catch he pulled off earlier was truly amazing and nothing short of impressive, which ironically catches even Zhao himself completely off guard. As things currently stand, the scoreboard shows 0 points for the first years while the second and third years have already built up a comfortable lead of 2 points. The ball then finds its way to one of Zhao's teammates, who is already having an incredibly difficult time trying to hold his ground and maintain possession against one of the opposing team's players pressing hard against him. The opposing player then succeeds in stripping the ball away from him entirely, taunting him and declaring that there is absolutely nothing he can do about it now. Just then, Zhao appears out of nowhere and steals the ball from him. Seeing that, both the boys are shocked and one of them thinks that Zhao is getting even better now. After that, Zhao runs through another player easily and then, he uses his trick shot to pass the ball to his teammate who is already ahead of him. After that, the guy passes the ball to Shien who couldn't reach the ball because the ball was too high. Zhao then manages to get the ball and he shoots it straight towards another player who manages to get it on time. Everyone then rushes over towards Zhongku and surrounds him with excitement, telling him that it was an absolutely incredible shot, but Zhongku simply shakes his head and redirects all the credit by pointing directly at Zhao and stating that it was his pass that was truly the amazing part of the whole play. He then jogs over to Zhao with the rest of the group trailing behind him and they all gather around to celebrate together, with everyone openly admitting that they never expected Zhao to be hiding such an impressive level of skill underneath everything. The goalkeeper also chimes in from his end, remarking that to still have that kind of explosive sprinting power at this stage of the game is something else entirely, and that the first years this time around are genuinely full of energy and drive. The guy standing beside him agrees wholeheartedly and adds that if things continue going in this direction, it is going to become an incredibly embarrassing situation for their side. He also concludes that the real problem was that Zhao's pass was simply far too precise and deadly to defend against effectively. Following the celebration, Zhongku turns to Zhao and tells him enthusiastically that if he can pull off that kind of pass just a few more times then victory is well within their reach. But before anything else can be said, Shien suddenly appears out of nowhere and grabs Zhongku aggressively by the neck. The girl from before however wastes absolutely no time and delivers a firm hit to Shien with a stick, firmly telling him to release Zhongku immediately. Meanwhile on the sidelines, Xiaofeng's younger sister remarks that Zhao's movements and playing style are extremely peculiar and unlike anything she has seen before, but that it is genuinely awesome to watch. Xiaofeng then catches a glimpse of the jersey Zhao was wearing and his mind immediately connects it to the one he had seen displayed on the news channel earlier, and the realization slowly begins to dawn on him that Zhao might somehow be directly related to it. The match continues and two players are both being closely guarded by the opposing team's players. Physical superiority has always been the advantage of the senior players. The strength of these senior brothers is not to be underestimated. With one push, one of the players loses his balance and falls to the field, blaming his small body. The red jersey guy dribbles the ball up with concentration clearly visible on his face, but he still cannot avoid being interfered with. The ball flies up from a kick by the green team player and gradually falls to where two players from the two teams are standing. Zhao suddenly runs over to catch it, causing the senior brother to watch helplessly. The goal is right in front of him and Zhao accelerates to run towards it. Suddenly one of the players shouts loudly from the front asking how long he is going to dribble the ball and to pass it. Unexpectedly, Zhao does not follow his words but gently flicks his ankle, kicking the ball high in the air in an arc. Then he accelerates like a god chasing after the ball, passing everyone. Just as it seems Zhao will score successfully, one of the players quickly chases after him right next to him, and as a teammate, he plays dirty to the extreme. He pulls Xiaoyi's jersey, causing him to be surprised and lose the ability to dribble the ball. Zhao does not fall but supports himself on the ground with one hand and flips the ball up with one foot. He uses the force to push his hand hard, causing his entire body to bounce up. With one foot planted, Zhao raises his other leg high in front of the ball, powerfully spinning around and kicking the ball forward with force. The ball spins in the air and flies forward at high speed, passing by one of the players' surprised face and successfully breaking through the opponent's goal. The coach tells everyone that today's training is over and everyone has worked hard and the bus has arrived, and they say goodbye to each other. The janitor happily cleans the football field, smiling at everyone and watching the bus leave. Later that evening, the janitor continues with the cleaning and puts the water bottles are put into bags. The janitor cleans up while saying to himself that today's harvest is not small. Suddenly realizing something, he turns to look at the football field and wonders that Zhao is still standing there. He reaches out to pick up the ball. The janitor walks over and looks at him for a while, then wonders if he is a student at their school as he does not seem to have seen him before. Tianfeng suddenly calls out asking what he is dawdling about. He puts his arm around Tianyu and walks over, saying he really knows how to cause trouble for others. The janitor wonders if Coach Tian knows him, but Tian replies with a smile that he is a distant relative of his, and he continues to suggest that he quickly change his clothes and come with them. Zhao then drifts off into a dream where he finds himself sitting at the grand dinner table inside his palace, where unfamiliar dishes has been served before him, but rather than simply eating, he turns to eunuch Gue and asks him what exactly these strange foods are, since he has never laid eyes on anything like them before. Gue immediately responds that he will have everything replaced if Zhao does not find them to his liking, and he proceeds to pull out a tablet device and uses it to summon a robot that swiftly and efficiently clears all of the dishes away from the table. Zhao gets completely astonished by the sight of these extraordinary robots and the seemingly endless variety of different dishes that keep appearing before him. Just then, Gue himself comes zooming in riding a sports bike, personally delivering a special variety of noodles directly to Zhao, which prompts Zhao to start firing off a stream of curious questions about everything he is witnessing around him. Gue, who carries the appearance of a robot himself, calmly explains to Zhao that they are currently going through a significant period of upgrades and transformation, and that anyone who fails to work hard and adapt to the changes simply will not be able to survive in this new era. That explanation is enough to snap Zhao right out of his dream, and the moment he opens his eyes, Xiaofeng's sister is right there greeting him warmly and telling him that since she knew he had stayed up late, she had made the thoughtful decision not to wake him up earlier. Xiaofeng's sister then looks through the fridge so that she could cook something for Zhao herself, but there is nothing in there except for a raw egg. She then decides to look in cupboard where she finds noodles, so she gets happy that she is going to cook egg noodles for lunch. Unexpectedly, Zhao asks her if he could help her with it, and then both of them starts cooking together. At first, Zhao struggles to cook, but Xiaofeng's sister tells him not to rush as the water needs to boil first. She then explains that the crux of cooking noodles is in the water temperature, as it won't cook thoroughly if he put it in too soon. Zhao asks her how someone determines if the water is boiling, so she tells him that when he hears a sound that means bubbles have started to appear, then it's about to boil. Just then, a deliver order arrives, and before leaving, she tells him that when the water boils, he should put the noodles in, and then add water when the noodles become soft. Xiaofeng then kept staring at the noodles, and when a signal bubble pop up, he quickly throws the noodles inside the bowl to let it cook. He then waits there for a while, but nothing happens, so he thinks that this isn't that hard, so he was just feeling nervous for nothing. Meanwhile, the delivery guy gives some parcels to Xiaofeng's sister, but then, they hear some noise, so they quickly rush to the kitchen. There, they cook the noodles scattered all over the place. Later, Xiaofeng's sister and Zhao goes out to buy some grocery, and Zhao feels that he is useless, but the girl tells him that he is actually pretty courageous. Hearing that, Zhao thinks that he is really courageous as he gets to live this kind of a life. The girl further tells him that everyone in this world has their own path, All of them are courageously moving forward towards their own path. As for Zhao, this can be considered as a new beginning and he need courage in everything no matter what he is doing. Moreover, she tells him that he does not need to be too anxious because the day will eventually come when he discovers a path in life that truly and rightfully belongs to him alone. Suddenly, the two of them catch sight of a lion dance performance taking place nearby, which is a traditional form of celebration, but Xiaofeng's sister quickly takes a closer look and realizes that the celebration is actually being held specifically in honor of the national football team, as today happens to be the day of the World Cup qualifying round for their country's national team. Zhao, however, has absolutely no idea what any of this is referring to, so he turns to her with a puzzled expression and asks her to explain, to which she enthusiastically responds that the World Cup is the single greatest and most prestigious tournament in all of football, one that is only held once every 4 years and serves as the stage where the very best teams and players from every corner of the world come together to compete against one another. She goes on to add that tonight their national team is set to play an incredibly important and high-stakes match against Cochin in the Asia qualifying round, and that she already has a prior arrangement made with her brother to go and watch the match together with him. Later that night, on the football training field of the high school, students are on the field and the game is in full swing. The coach outside also loudly reminds one of the players to stop dribbling and pass to his teammate who is supporting him. The player thinks that he knows everything, but the friend that player is supposed to pass the ball to is also closely guarded by the red team. The red-shirted guy from the other team suddenly points behind him and says that someone is attacking. The player instinctively turns to look behind him and seizing the opportunity, the guy quickly steals the ball and smiles provocatively, saying that the kid has been tricked. The player quickly chases after him and complains that the senior is playing dirty again. Off the field, the coach and another person hold their heads helplessly. Tian thinks in frustration that if it continues like this, the team will not get out of the group stage. Suddenly a voice comes from afar calling for the coach and he reports that principal wants him to go to the meeting room immediately for an emergency meeting. He says that the school board members are also there. Tian wonders to herself what is going on and why her brother is not answering the phone, and it seems she can only text him. Next to her, Zhao makes a request to tell Tian to bring a smaller shirt when he comes. Suddenly a beam of light flies high from behind Tian and it begins to explode in the night sky, forming fireworks. The crowd also becomes livelier and noisier, and Tian says the fireworks are beautiful and it seems the competition is about to start. Tian then tells Zhao that they should not wait for him anymore and they should head inside. Tian points the way and says it has been a long time since she has been to the scene to watch a game, but Zhao wonders if they could even watch the game properly with so many people. While trying to move, he has to push the people around him. It turns out, in 1930, the first World Cup is held in Uruguay with 16 teams participating. In 1982, the World Cup is expanded from 16 teams to 24 teams. In 1998, it is expanded again from 24 teams to 32 teams. In 2026, the World Cup will be jointly organized by the United States, Canada, and Mexico, and the number of participating teams will be expanded to 48 teams. The number of participating teams in the Asian region will also increase from 4.5 teams to 8.5 teams, and the top 18 competition in the Asian region is about to begin. Is Zhao strong enough to survive what's coming? Comment, training, if you'd like a part 2 of this series. Make sure to like and subscribe the channel for more sports manhwa recaps.